General Hospital spoilers reveal that Nikolas's return is not just a shock to Port Charles, but also the beginning of a series of insane adjustments that are gradually eroding the fragile relationships that have already been damaged in the past. Nikolas comes back not with the intention of reconciliation or redemption, but with a mind full of obsessions, simmering anger, unresolved plans, and a desire to reclaim a position once buried in someone else's hands. What Nikolas experienced during his months of imprisonment in Pentonville did not awaken him to seek atonement as many had hoped. Instead, it pushed him into a rebirth in the shadows, becoming a more complex, cold, and dangerous version of himself. The obsession with Ava, Spencer, Esme, and the collapse of his own Cassadine family has fueled a ruthless determination within him. If he cannot regain everything through emotions, he will take it back through power and strategy. Port Charles begins to feel the changes from his return. The atmosphere shifts. Everyone is on guard. Because just by looking into Nikolas's eyes, it's clear he is not the same. The first adjustments appear within the Spencer and Cassadine families, where Nikolas's presence acts as a deep wound, bleeding old scars. Laura is worried but still hopes to save her son. Lucky cannot hide his doubts. And Lulu, though just waking up, feels an unspoken unease when her brother stands before her with an unreadable expression. Nikolas is not seeking forgiveness. He is not trying to explain himself. Instead, he silently begins to shift the balance, step by step, rebuilding his network of influence. Rumors begin to spread that he is trying to reclaim ownership of Windermere, and may be quietly reaching out to the financial resources that once belonged to the Cassadine family. Ava, who had endured the hurt from Nikolas, now faces a dangerous choice: confront the past or continue to be swept into the controlling cycle of a man she both hates and cannot let go. The death of Sonny and Liz, along with a series of recent chaotic events, has weakened Port Charles more than ever. Nikolas senses this fracture, and he sees it as the perfect moment to wedge himself in, restructuring the order he believes has been broken. Relationships that were once allies, like with Carly or Jason, are now shadowed by caution. Everyone feels it. Nikolas is not just back, he is back with a mission of his own, and this could ignite a new wave of conflict, revenge, and collapse. The most defining feature of Nikolas's behavior now is his calculated, controlling adjustments that verge on madness. He is not rebelling impulsively, he is suppressing, observing, and acting at the right moment, like a predator waiting in the dark. Every move he makes sends shockwaves through relationships that seemed stable. Every word he speaks is a warning to those who dare stop him from reclaiming his former position. The madness in Nikolas's mind lies not in uncontrolled actions but in his blind belief that everything he does is for the revival of the Cassadine family, for his personal honor, and for a righteousness only he understands. Because of this, people like Trina, Kai, and even characters seemingly unrelated like Anna, Curtis, or Alexis, could all become pawns caught in this dark game. Port Charles is no longer a peaceful town. It is warping, restructuring in a twisted way that Nikolas has either intentionally or accidentally created. And if no one has the strength to stop him, this wave of madness will wash away whatever is left of trust, loyalty, and even love in the city. The adjustments Nikolas brings are not just a turning point, they are a dark wave rising day by day. And when it breaks, no one knows what will be left of Port Charles. Laura is quietly carrying out a new plan to get Nikolas out of Pentonville earlier than expected, hoping that her son's return could be the first step in healing the Cassadine family's fractures. As a mother, Laura has never given up on the belief that Nikolas, despite his mistakes and being lost, still deserves a second chance. But Laura's interference is unknowingly triggering a series of dangerous chain reactions, pushing Port Charles into an unprecedented confrontation and conflict. This story is not simply about a mother wanting to save her son. Nikolas's return is tied to dark memories, unresolved grudges, and forces in the shadows waiting for the cracks to widen to insert themselves. Laura knows this well, but in her heart, filled with contradictions as one who has witnessed many tragedies, she believes Nikolas deserves that second chance. However, this decision is opening the door to a whole new series of problems. The characters Nikolas once hurt, from Ava and Trina to even Spencer. If he were alive, now see his return as a real threat. Ava still cannot forget the years of manipulation, betrayal, and threats. Trina, though moving on with Kai, cannot deny that Nikolas was the one who once sowed fear into her life. Each person is bracing for a new battle, because they all understand, Nikolas is not returning peacefully. And then, other dangers begin to emerge. Jason and Carly, who are trying to stabilize order after Sunny's death, are uneasy about the possibility of Nikolas seizing the power vacuum to re-establish the Cassadine family's influence. Brennan and Sidwell, those scheming to seize power in the shadows, also view Nikolas as an uncontrollable piece in the puzzle. They do not want another Cassadine at the center of the city, especially when that person is Nikolas, the so-called monster who controls others with coldness. The more Laura tries to bring Nikolas back, the more Port Charles descends into chaos. Her intervention meets resistance from many sides, the town council, the legal system, and even those closest to her. Lulu remains silently conflicted. Lucky is torn between his love for his brother and his fear of losing the newfound peace. Meanwhile, forces like Victor, if any traces remain, could also resurface from the shadows, because the resurrection of a Cassadine always comes with unpredictable dark consequences. With each passing day, Laura faces increasing isolation. And in the heart of the woman who once was the mayor, once a symbol of fairness, the greatest doubt is rising. Has the decision to save her son become a mistake that will cost the whole town? Port Charles is cracking, piece by piece, because of a return that hasn't even fully happened yet, but has already shaken everything. And if Nikolas truly walks out of Pentonville, the current troubles are only the beginning of a much larger crisis. The unexpected return of Nikolas and Spencer is shaking Port Charles to its core, opening a completely new chapter filled with dark schemes and old wounds that have yet to heal, starting to bleed once again. After a long absence, both father and son of the Cassadine family are making their return simultaneously, not to heal, but with a series of new, chaotic adjustments, full of disorder and a quietly simmering desire for revenge. Nikolas returns after his time in Pentonville with a sharp gaze and a calm that is dangerously unsettling. He is no longer the man tormented by past mistakes, he is a hardened version, reborn in the shadows, with the resolve and obsessions necessary to execute a long-term plan to restore the Cassadine name. At the same time, Spencer, the one thought to be dead, suddenly reappears. And his return only makes everything more complicated. Spencer is no longer the young man torn between love and honor. He returns with a cold, mature demeanor. But in his eyes is a simmering anger, about what he has lost, about Trina, about betrayal, and about the price his family has paid. No one knows what Spencer went through during his disappearance. But it is clear that he is not back to forgive, but to take back what was once his, at any cost. The simultaneous return of Nikolas and Spencer is no accident. It is part of a carefully crafted revenge plan, aimed directly at those who pushed their family to the edge. Ava, Trina, Victor, if any traces remain. Even Carly and Jason, those who stood at the top while the Cassadine family crumbled, are now potential targets in a silent retaliation game. Port Charles is beginning to feel the disorder. Relationships that seemed stable are now shaking, secrets thought buried are being dragged back into the light. Every step Nikolas and Spencer take carries a mysterious energy, no need for threats. Just their eyes and presence are enough to make even the strongest of people cautious. The scariest thing is not the overt revenge, but the subtle calculations of the two Cassadines, now united in purpose. Nikolas is the puppeteer in the shadows, and Spencer is the living piece on the chessboard. Their coordination makes it unclear where to begin defending, because they are not just up against one Cassadine, but a whole new generation ready to revive the dark legacy that Port Charles once tried to bury. These troubles are no longer just family conflicts or unfinished love stories. They are political, financial, social, and emotional blows, designed to bring down each key figure from their position. And if Port Charles does not react quickly enough, A new Cassadine dynasty will be established, not with blood, but with darkness. Nikolas and Spencer have returned. And this time, they are not here to let it slide. They have come back to reclaim it all. Nikolas has long been a controversial figure in the history of Port Charles, not because he is overly evil or entirely virtuous, but because of the contradictions and imperfections within him that make him dangerously unpredictable. Nikolas has always walked the line between right and wrong, love and hate, protection and ruthlessness, making his every action difficult to predict and even more dangerous when he feels cornered. Now, as he returns during a time when Port Charles is in turmoil due to loss, infighting, and division, Nikolas' storyline enters a new phase, dark, compressed, and unyielding. He no longer strives to prove he's a good father, a worthy husband, or a kind Cassadine. Nikolas has given up on the desire for forgiveness from others. Instead, he begins to reshape his image as a cold strategist. One who doesn't let emotions interfere with decisions, even if those decisions can lead to severe consequences. The changes within Nikolas didn't come spontaneously, but rather as the result of years of betrayal, hurt, and being cast aside by his own family. From his presumed death, the loss of his son, to being turned away by Ava, ridiculed by Spencer, and abandoned by those who once loved him, Nikolas has gathered enough reasons to no longer compromise. Because of this, his return isn't about listening or healing, it's about attacking. The madness in Nikolas lies not in chaotic, uncontrollable rage, but in cold, calculated indifference. He strikes like a gambler who knows exactly when to play his trump card, and one by one, he begins to uncover buried secrets from the past to shake the foundations of every relationship in the present. Ava might think she has escaped Nikolas, but he is the one who holds the darkest parts of her past. Trina may believe she is safe, but Nikolas still sees her as the link to Spencer's downfall, and thus remains on the list of things to deal with. Carly and Jason may be in control of the post-Sunny world, but Nikolas is the only one brave enough to play outside the law, and no one taught him to adhere to any rules. The new troubles Nikolas causes don't come from a desire to provoke conflict, but from his rekindling of what Port Charles has tried to forget, that peace in this town has never truly been sustainable. The return of a Cassadine is enough to shake things up. And when it's Nikolas, someone unafraid to trade, to break, and to become the villain to achieve his goals, the stakes are even higher. Laura, though still holding on to the hope that her son can right his wrongs, begins to sense the instability in Nikolas' gaze, a gaze from someone who has abandoned faith but still holds power. And when Spencer returns, instead of pulling Nikolas back toward the light, their reunion could create a dangerous father-son duo, with ambition quietly burning beneath the surface. Nikolas' storyline, therefore, is no longer about redemption, it's about a man who has vanished into the darkness, only to return as a symbol of control, vengeance, and a Cassadine that can never die. New plans are taking shape, step by step, quietly, like a storm building before it hits. And Port Charles, with all its characters who seem to be settled, won't even recognize what's waiting for them until it's too late. Nikolas has never been perfect, but it is this very imperfection that is turning him into the new central character in a dark era that Port Charles will have to face. And if no one dares to confront him, all the current stability could come crashing down with just a nod from him. Nikolas is about to return to Port Charles, but this time not as a remorseful son or a regretful father, but as a powerful, sharp, and calculating Cassadine, ready to use any tool at his disposal to regain his position in this chaotic town. And even more astonishing, it is Laura, his mother, who has always believed that Nikolas can change, who is unwittingly becoming the stepping stone for him to rebuild the dark legacy of the Cassadine family. Laura, in her role as the mayor of Port Charles and a deeply loving mother, has always tried to find the last remaining light within Nikolas. She believes that the past can be corrected with love, and that anyone, even Nikolas, deserves a second chance. This belief has led Laura to lobby, seek support from political resources, and even influence the justice system to shorten the time Nikolas spends in Pentonville. But what Laura fails to see, or perhaps refuses to see, is that Nikolas is exploiting her trust to serve his own dangerous covert plan. There is no doubt that Adam Huss has confirmed he will officially return to the role of Nikolas in April. And this is like a ticking time bomb in the increasingly complicated storyline of General Hospital. This return is not just about rekindling old relationships, but about igniting a new power struggle. With Nikolas at the center, carrying the ambition to reclaim everything, from Windmere, to Spencer, and even the memories buried over the years. Nikolas is no longer the man tormented by his mistakes, he is now a seasoned strategist, using the image of the outcast to manipulate emotions and public opinion. He knows Laura is the key to his return without being shunned by the town, and he knows exactly how to strike at her soft heart, with half-hearted apologies, pensive looks, and promises of change. But in Nikolas' mind, every adjustment is just part of a larger game, where he is the only one controlling the board. Port Charles, already fragile after Sonny and Liz's deaths, is now more vulnerable than ever. Jason and Carly are trying to maintain order with their influence and subtle control. Ava is trying to keep her distance from old wounds that have yet to heal. Trina is moving forward with her new life with Kai. But no one expects that Nikolas, the one who seemed to have vanished into the shadows, is returning not to restore peace, but to bring chaos. His return may pose more threats than opportunities. He could pull Spencer back into the old Cassadine ideals, re-establish the family legacy by eliminating obstacles. He could return to Ava. Not to rekindle love, but to drown her in power and control. He could attack Laura's trust, forcing her to stand at the crossroads of morality and motherhood. And most importantly, he could use his return as a bargaining chip, threatening the forces trying to seize control of the town, from Brennan to Sidwell, that the Cassadines were never weak, and will never die. With Adam Huss returning and the storyline reaching its climax, April promises to be a turning point for General Hospital, where the lines between right and wrong, good and evil, blur. And Nikolas stands as a symbol for both unresolved losses and unrelenting rage. Port Charles will never be the same again. And under Adam Huss' portrayal, Nikolas will not just return, he will plunge the entire town into a power game with an unpredictable outcome. Nikolas has not just existed in the shadows of Pentonville, he has risen, building an underground empire within the very walls of the prison, which once symbolized punishment but now serves as a launching pad for one of the most terrifying returns Port Charles has ever seen. Instead of collapsing, Nikolas has used each day to build a new web of influence, taking advantage of the weaknesses of the powerful within, manipulating, bargaining, and controlling with pure Cassadine coldness. He is no longer the man destroyed by his mistakes, he is transforming into a ruler, a completely new villain. It is in those cold stone walls that Nikolas learned the most important lesson of his life. To survive, you must master the darkness. From controlling powerful criminals, manipulating the relationships between guards and prisoners, to sowing fear at the right moment, Nikolas has skillfully created an invisible kingdom where his word weighs heavier than the law. As the time to return to Port Charles approaches, Nikolas is no longer a man seeking forgiveness, he is a new force, sharpened by bitterness, betrayal, and ambition. And the most frightening part, he believes that everything he does is completely justified. In Nikolas' mind, this is no longer about revenge, it is about restoring order the Cassadine way. An order where emotions are mere tools and loyalty is something that can be bought. His journey to become a new monster comes not from losing control, but from a chilling, terrifying calmness. Nikolas doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to make noise, he acts in silence, letting the results speak for themselves. And when he steps out of Pentonville's gates, he is not just a free man, he is one who has already laid the foundations for a plan to rebuild power, enough to challenge anyone who holds the upper hand in Port Charles. Those who once underestimated him will pay. Those who betrayed him will bow down. And those who loved him, like Laura, Spencer, or even Ava, will face a harsh truth. The Nikolas they once knew no longer exists. Instead, he is someone who has perfected himself not through redemption, but through power, control, and the belief that he was born to rule, not to beg for forgiveness. And Port Charles, still caught up in other battles, is unprepared for the return of a new Cassadine, more ruthless, more intelligent, and without any weakness. A new dynasty is rising, and Nikolas is leading the way.